I want to talk about the difference between love and compatibility. What is the difference? Do we need both? How do we know if we have it? How can we spot it? What is it? Which way is up, right? And to be honest, when I first came across this topic of love versus compatibility, I couldn't quite find the words to describe the difference and say, this is that, this is the other, here's how you know, here's the difference. And I think that's probably, frankly, how most of us are. Compatibility, love, getting along well with someone, loving someone, understanding someone, supporting someone. It's really a hodgepodge of feelings that are defined by a lot of different emotions and words. And we use words like chemistry and connection as well. So it's pretty difficult to carve out separate definitions and say you need this and you don't need that, and this comes first and that comes second. But the more I thought about this, the more I realized that we do need to come up with an answer for what is the difference between love and compatibility. Because the reality is this: you watching this, you are a nice person, you're self-aware, you've probably got a lot going on for you, you're funny, you're driven, you're eager, and so you probably are compatible with quite a few people. You probably get along with quite a few people. You can talk to other people. You see the best in other people. You want to, right? You want to talk about things that interest you. You want to learn about other people. You're drawn to new people and you're empathetic. And a lot of those people exist, right? And you get along with them. But the problem from that I've realized from addressing this idea head on is that we get in trouble when we try to force love with people like that. That is, people we're compatible with, but we're only just compatible with them. We get in trouble when we force love with people we're only just compatible with. And that ends up creating a world of hurt and frustration for ourselves, because when that happens, and it will happen a lot, because again, you're compatible with a lot of people, when that happens, without really thinking about it, you adopt this mindset that says compatibility is love. Compatibility should lead to love. And so there you are, you end up frustrated when you come across people who you get along well with, you're compatible with them, but it doesn't lead to love. It doesn't lead to anything more. And that hurts your feelings if you don't take the time to realize that there's a difference. You don't need to doubt yourself because you didn't get to love. Because it's like in your head, maybe you're like, well, I'm always good enough to hang out and I get along well and we laugh and we drive and all these things, but I never get to 100%. I only get that 50%. And if you don't challenge that notion, if you don't take a step back and realize the difference between love and compatibility, you start to hurt yourself. But this idea, the difference between love and compatibility, will help you realize that not all compatibility leads to love, and that is fine. So I just want to take a couple minutes here and help us better define the two so that we don't confuse them, so that we don't try to force love in an instance where compatibility is the final stop. And we don't force compatibility where maybe in our heads we've fallen in love. More on that in a bit. So here's what I've come up with, and I'd love your feedback as well. This is from my experience, dating for whatever it is, 15 years. To me, compatibility is kind of what I just mentioned. It's something that you can find and develop with quite a few people. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of people. People you have things in common with, people you get along well with. Maybe you have similar values or morals or political views, right? You work well with them. You communicate well with them. Similar senses of humor. Basically, it's you're friends with these people, right? You have friends vibes because you wouldn't be friends with someone you weren't compatible with in a sense. So it's borrowing from that, but of course, it's in a more romantic sense. It might be more palpable. You might have familiar family upbringing experiences or shared, disappointment, deeply rooted things that would take a lot to unpack. But base level, you get along. You enjoy spending time together, and you have aligned values and aligned visions. Frankly, I think compatibility is, you just like that person for a reason, and they like you. And you came across each other randomly by divine intervention. You have this connection, this alignment of views of the world, lifestyle decisions, senses of humor, whatever. You have aligned goals, right? You're not going to be very compatible if one of you is content making 30 grand a year and the other one thinks that's not nearly good enough. Or one of you wants kids and is driven by that mission and the other one hates kids, right? Compatibility, aligned values, goals, ethics, lifestyles, and so on. And you absolutely, of course, need this for a relationship to work. It's the foundation. You can, of course, be different, but you need a foundation of some kind of commonality, a commonality that allows your partner to respect any differences you might have and you to theirs as well. But the more I think about this, the more I realize that compatibility is something you just have with someone. Sure, it's something that you can further develop through communication and mutual enthusiasm, but more or less, you either have it or you don't. You either have that alignment or you don't. So the way I see it is compatibility is something you have, but love is something you create. Compatibility is something you have. Love is something you create. Love is what happens when that compatibility becomes an emotional connection represented by a desire to have a relationship, a strong desire to have a relationship. The difference here is you both are compatible, check, and that compatibility that then leads to emotional connection, check, and you both want a relationship, check. It's like PEMDAS in school, order of operations, compatibility, connection, desire to have a relationship. Something that you have is compatibility. Something that you build is love. And it comes in that order in my mind. Compatibility is so incredibly important. Of course, we're not downplaying compatibility. It means you have found someone and you feel safe in their presence. You feel that you can be yourself around them. And that's because of who they are. And you're compatible because of that and because of who you are. You're aligned. You communicate openly and honestly. You're good. But that doesn't necessarily lead to love. To my point, you're compatible with a lot of people. Compatibility puts love on the table, on the menu, but it's something that you have to develop together because of the connection you feel. And that's defined entirely by the choices that follow. I've talked about this before, about encouraging us to see love as a choice, not a feeling, because love is a verb. It's a choice. It's something you do together. And I think this is where we need to draw the line between compatibility and love. Compatibility is found. It's developed to an extent, sure, but it's kind of the miracle of life. Coming across someone and you just click. You feel good together. And that's because of the work you've put in separately into yourselves. And it's created these two great, separate, unique individual people, and you come together and the puzzle pieces just fit. Fit in the sense of communication styles and worldviews and hobbies and those kinds of things. But that work has been done separately. You've done it on your own and you come together. Love, then, is what you create and you do and you choose together. And I think if we realize this, we can avoid the two scenarios that I mentioned that are painful. You're compatible with someone, but you're forcing love, or you're in love, but not fully compatible. And this is where we get in trouble. So in the first scenario, you're compatible, right? You're compatible with this person, but you're forcing love on them, right? So you get along, you gel, you're like, well, why wouldn't we be in love? We're soulmates, right? Well, no, of course not. That's why I opened with reminding us that there's a lot of people you'll get along well with in life. You'll have a lot of commonality with, you'll feel compatible with, but it doesn't mean it will lead to love, because that's love that's dictated by timing, by a desire to be in a relationship, by a desire to sacrifice, a desire to make choices. Perhaps you're better off as friends, certainly. And the second, you're in love with someone in your head, but not fully compatible with someone. Right? You don't have to be 100% compatible with someone for a relationship to work, of course, but this can happen. Love without compatibility, I've found when you misinterpret compatibility in the beginning. You saw one or two commonalities and you overlooked all of the rest of the important stuff. Communication, values, ethics. You grasped onto one reality and projected it into 1,000 pieces of potential. And you fell in love with that one piece of compatibility, but you didn't look at the rest. And voila, you're trying to force love without a measure of enough compatibility. You're forcing love, right? Because you looked at compatibility and thought that was love, but you didn't look at the entire picture. So I think what I'm realizing here, and at the end of the day, what we're talking about here are just two words, right? There's words. Words mean different things to different people. So don't get thrown by this if you use a different word like connection or chemistry or soulmates or something like that. Don't get lost in the nomenclature of how we categorize things. But what I do know is that you do need two ideas for a healthy relationship to work. And they are different, and you cannot force either. First thing, you need common ground. You need a connection that combines practical components of reality, values, worldviews, lifestyle choices. Things that if you don't have, you're going to struggle to explore the emotional component because you're divergent right off the bat. You need compatibility, common ground. You need that common ground. But the next is you need a desire to act, to verb, to make choices together for joint union, aka love, if that's the word we're going to use. You can't have one without another. You can't force one without the other. And so I think we need to be able to think both practically and emotionally when it comes to relationships. Practically, do I have the base here where we can explore more? And emotionally, does that practical base make me feel in love? Does it make me want to do things that represent love, that represent the connection I have with this person? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves and to judge of our partner. If we don't, we can end up in these relationships where we're lacking one or the other, where we're trying to force love and commitment on someone else or ourselves without a base that encourages us to do it, or we're trying to force broad commonality because we've fallen in love with the idea or the one aspect of someone. You can have compatibility without romantic love for sure. That's for friends, for people who come into your life and change you for the better. It's for deep connections. But you can't have, in my opinion, pure, limitless love without this element of compatibility. And I'll close this by coming back to something I said a long time ago regarding soulmates. There's a lot of talk about soulmates, what they are, how you know. I don't know what a soulmate is. Again, it's just another word. You could have all kinds of words in life. And same with soulmates. You could have all kinds of soulmates in life, ones that are temporary and ones that last forever, but the definition is the same. For me, a soulmate is someone who comes into your life and helps you break old patterns. That is how I think about love as well. Love is a promise, it's a feeling, but it's a promise made by choices. Both people want it. Both people are willing to act for it. You commit to it. You choose to love each other. It's a choice. Compatibility focuses a lot on the good sides of each other, right? What you have in common, how great your connection is, how great you communicate, all this stuff. Love, frankly, reminds you of the challenges that each of you represent. Because we all have things that are challenging about us. Love reminds us of them, but it's solidified by our willingness to embrace those things, to choose action, to choose trust, to choose verbs. That is love, and that is the difference. And in the case of compatibility versus love, the love component is when that compatibility turns into an eagerness between the two of you to both break patterns that challenged you previously. You help each other heal and evolve and grow, and you do that by coming together and making choices together. Choices, verbs, not just the feeling of being in love or feeling chemistry or feeling connection or feeling compatible even. You both break patterns for each other through the choices you make, love. And you do that for each other because you're driven to, because you want to, because you're compelled to. And that is the difference between love and compatibility.